In the vast expanse of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was known as the most powerful group of beings. It controlled countless planets, had the best technology, and enforced its rules across the stars. Zarn, an alien engineer from the planet Talrath, worked for the Council. He was known for his sharp mind and ability to fix almost anything, from broken ships to complex machines. He was proud of his work, but he had never seen anything quite like the task ahead of him. For months, the Galactic Council had been hearing strange stories about Earth, a small, seemingly unimportant planet in a distant corner of the galaxy. Rumors had spread that Earth had warships, ships so powerful that they could challenge the might of the entire Council. Most members of the Council laughed at the idea. How could a simple, backward planet like Earth have anything that could threaten us? They asked. After all, Earth's technology was considered old, primitive, and far behind the advanced machines the Council used every day. But as the stories grew, the Council decided it was time to investigate. They selected Zarn for the mission. He was one of the few engineers trusted with the most important tasks, and they believed he could uncover the truth about Earth's warships. His job was simple: travel to Earth, study their ships, and report back. If the stories were true, Zarn would be the first to bring back the truth. If the stories were lies, he would expose them and show the galaxy that Earth was nothing more than a small, unimportant planet. Zarn did not expect much. He had read the reports and knew about Earth's technology. It was primitive at best. Their warships, from what little information the Council had, seemed like old relics from a time long past. How could they possibly be anything special? Zarn smiled to himself as he prepared for the mission. This would be an easy job. He would confirm what everyone already knew: Earth was no threat. As Zarn's ship made its way toward Earth, he couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. He was about to see this primitive world for himself. The journey was long, and Zarn spent most of the time studying Earth's history and technology. The more he read, the more he became convinced that the stories he had heard were exaggerated. Earth's ships were made from metal and had no advanced technology. They relied on old engines, weapons, and designs that the Galactic Council had abandoned centuries ago. After what seemed like forever, Zarn's ship finally entered Earth's solar system. He looked out the window and saw the planet in the distance. It looked small, unremarkable, a blue and green ball surrounded by a few small moons. As he got closer, Zarn was struck by the silence. There were no giant space stations, no fleets of warships guarding the planet. It was as if Earth was completely defenseless. "Well, this should be easy," Zarn muttered to himself. "Just a simple check, and then I'll be on my way." He landed on Earth's surface, in a secret military base located in the middle of a vast desert. The base was heavily guarded, but Zarn could tell that the humans didn't have the advanced weapons the Council had. Their soldiers wore old-fashioned uniforms, and their weapons looked like they belonged to a past age. Still, Zarn didn't think much of it. He was here for one reason only: to see the warships. He was greeted by a human officer who seemed eager to show him the ships. The officer, named Captain Rena, led Zarn through a narrow hallway that smelled of oil and metal. They passed rows of soldiers and engineers who were working on various machines. Zarn couldn't help but notice how old everything looked. Nothing was sleek or shiny like the Council's ships. Everything was rough, worn, and patched together. The humans didn't have the resources to build anything new or high-tech. It seemed clear to Zarn that the stories he had heard were just that: stories. Finally, Captain Rena took him into a large hangar. The doors opened slowly, revealing a massive ship sitting in the center. It looked like something out of Earth's past, a huge, clunky machine covered in rust and dents. Zarn's heart sank. This was it. This was the warship that had everyone so worried. It didn't look impressive at all. He couldn't hide his disappointment. "Well, what do you think?" Captain Rena asked, her voice full of pride. Zarn didn't answer immediately. He walked around the ship, inspecting every part. The design was simple, almost laughable compared to the sleek, powerful ships of the Galactic Council. The ship had large, bulky engines, thick metal armor, and an array of old-style guns. It looked slow and outdated. Zarn shook his head. This was no warship. It was a relic, a piece of history that had no place in the modern galaxy. "You're sure this is the ship everyone's worried about?" Zarn asked, trying to hide the sarcasm in his voice. Captain Rena smiled. "Oh, this is just the beginning. Wait until you see what it can do." Zarn couldn't believe it. How could this rusting hulk possibly be anything special? He was about to find out. The journey from Talrath to Earth was long, even for an experienced space traveler like Zarn. His ship, a sleek vessel designed for speed, cut through the vast emptiness of space. But Zarn didn't feel the excitement of a new adventure. He was still thinking about Earth and the strange rumors surrounding it. He couldn't believe that such a simple, far-off world could possibly have warships that could challenge the might of the Galactic Council. As Zarn sat in the pilot's seat, the stars outside the window looked like tiny points of light scattered across an endless black canvas. He ran his fingers over the smooth control panel, feeling the familiar hum of his ship's engines. The quiet, steady pace of his journey allowed him to think. Think about what he had read, what he had heard. He was eager to get this mission over with. It seemed like such a waste of time. Earth had nothing to offer. Yet, a small part of him wondered what he might find there. Could the rumors be true? Zarn wasn't the type to believe in tall tales or wild stories. He was an engineer. He trusted facts, logic, and technology. The reports he had read about Earth were full of errors, contradictions, and exaggerations, but something in the back of his mind told him that there might be more to Earth than met the eye. He pushed the thought away. There was no way a planet like Earth could pose any real threat. His ship traveled through empty space, passing by other planets, moons, and stars. Zarn had visited many worlds during his time in the Galactic Council, and most of them were like Earth, small, unremarkable places in the far corners of the galaxy. He had seen many worlds that were more advanced, more powerful, and more interesting than Earth. But Earth was different. It was somehow intriguing. Zarn looked out the window at the passing stars. As he passed the outer planets of Earth's solar system, he noticed something strange. Unlike most planets, Earth's solar system felt quiet. There were no fleets of ships in orbit, no giant space stations guarding the planet. Zarn found it odd. Most advanced civilizations placed heavy defenses around their homeworlds. But Earth had nothing. There wasn't even a single sign of life in the space around it. Zarn's curiosity grew. He couldn't help but wonder why a planet with nothing special in its solar system had become the subject of so much gossip. What was it about Earth that made the Galactic Council take notice? Why were these rumors spreading across the galaxy? As his ship neared the inner planets, Zarn began to notice something else. The planets around Earth were almost entirely quiet, devoid of any signs of advanced life. Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. Zarn scanned them, one by one, but there were no fleets, no defenses, no huge cities. The solar system was peaceful, almost to the point of being eerie. Earth's neighbors were barren, with no signs of warships or advanced technology. Finally, Zarn saw it. Earth, the small blue and green planet, sat there, almost out of place, floating peacefully in the blackness of space. From a distance, it didn't look like anything special. No glittering cities in the sky, no bright lights from orbiting space stations. Just a simple planet, surrounded by a few small moons. Zarn couldn't help but feel a sense of confusion. Where were all the advanced ships, the powerful weapons, the space fleets that the Council had talked about? He had expected Earth to be teeming with advanced technology, and yet there was nothing. As his ship got closer to Earth, Zarn began to question everything he had read. He passed through the outer layers of the atmosphere, his ship's shields glowing faintly as they protected him from the heat. As Zarn entered Earth's atmosphere, he looked down at the planet below. The view was beautiful, with oceans, mountains, and forests stretching out across the surface. It was hard to believe that such a peaceful, serene place could have any kind of military power. Zarn had been to dozens of planets, and each one had been different. Some were rich in technology, others were full of dangerous creatures, and still others were controlled by powerful warlords. But Earth felt different. It was so quiet, so calm, and yet the stories Zarn had heard couldn't be ignored. There was something about Earth that he couldn't quite figure out. As Zarn's ship descended lower, he began to see signs of human civilization. He spotted cities, but they were small compared to the enormous metropolises he had seen on other worlds. The cities seemed peaceful, almost like they had been untouched by war. There were no signs of military buildup, no massive fortresses or spaceports. It was hard to imagine that this world could have the kind of warships the Council feared. Zarn's ship touched down on the surface of Earth, and he could feel the weight of the mission on his shoulders. The base he was visiting was in a remote desert, far from the cities. The soldiers here seemed calm, confident, and ready to show Zarn what Earth had to offer. But even as he stepped off his ship, Zarn couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to learn something that would change everything he thought he knew about this planet. Zarn stepped off his ship and onto the dry, dusty ground of Earth. The air was warm, but not too hot, with a strange smell of earth and metal in the air. He looked around, seeing nothing but desert stretching out in every direction. There were no towering cities, no signs of advanced technology, just the quiet, open land. For a moment, he wondered if he had made a mistake in coming here. What could this quiet world possibly have to offer? A group of humans approached from a nearby building. They wore uniforms made of tough, worn material and carried themselves with a calm confidence. At the front of the group was a woman, tall and strong-looking. She had short brown hair and sharp eyes that seemed to look straight through Zarn. She didn't smile, but there was something about her that made Zarn feel uneasy. She was the kind of person who didn't waste time with pleasantries. She got straight to the point. "I'm Captain Rena," she said in a clear, firm voice. "Welcome to Earth." Zarn nodded, giving her a polite but distant look. He had met many humans in his travels, but something about Captain Rena made him pause. She wasn't like the engineers or scientists he was used to. There was no sign of fear or uncertainty in her expression. She wasn't here to impress him or prove anything. She was simply here to show him what Earth had. "I'm here to see your ships," Zarn said, getting straight to business. "I've heard some strange rumors about your warships. I need to see them for myself." Captain Rena gave him a sharp nod. "Follow me. I'll show you everything." Zarn followed her and the group of soldiers as they walked toward a large hangar on the edge of the base. The hangar doors opened with a loud screech, revealing a massive warship sitting inside. At first glance, Zarn thought it looked like an ancient relic. The ship was made of thick, heavy metal plates, and its engine seemed old and worn down. It was nothing like the sleek, advanced ships of the Galactic Council. Zarn expected to laugh at it, but he held back his thoughts. He needed to be respectful, at least for now. "Is this it?" Zarn asked, raising an eyebrow. Captain Rena didn't answer right away. She simply walked up to the ship and placed her hand on its surface, as if the ship was a living thing she trusted completely. "This is one of our oldest ships," she said, "but don't let its age fool you. This ship has survived battles, storms, and countless repairs. It's more than just metal and wires. It's a symbol of our strength." Zarn raised his eyebrows in surprise. Strength. He wasn't sure what she meant by that. The ship looked old, slow, and weak to him. It didn't look like anything that could survive a serious fight. "We don't have the fancy tech you're used to," Captain Rena continued, "but we make do with what we have. We've learned to fight with what we've built, and that's what makes us strong." Zarn thought about this. He had heard about Earth's history, how humans had survived wars, famines, and natural disasters. They were known for being survivors, but he hadn't really understood what that meant until now. Captain Reyna didn't seem proud of her ship's appearance. She didn't care about the rust or the dents. What mattered was that it had fought for Earth, time and time again. "Come inside," she said, motioning toward the open door of the ship. "You'll see what makes it work." Zarn followed her inside, his boots echoing on the metal floor. Inside, the ship was even older. Wires hung from the ceiling, and some of the controls looked like they belonged in a museum. Zarn frowned. How could this be the ship that was supposed to impress the Galactic Council? "This is the main control room," Captain Reyna said, pointing to a group of humans who were busy working on various systems. "They're the heart of the ship. Without them, nothing works." Zarn watched the humans move with efficiency. They weren't using advanced tools or fancy computers. Instead, they relied on simple, practical knowledge. They didn't need the latest technology. They made do with what they had, fixing things as they broke, finding new ways to keep their ship running. Zarn realized that these humans weren't relying on their technology to be strong. They were relying on each other. "What do you think?" Captain Reyna asked. Zarn didn't answer right away. He was still processing what he had seen. He had expected Earth's warships to be outdated and weak, but he was starting to see something different. These humans didn't need the best technology to survive. They had the willpower to fight, no matter what. "I think." Zarn paused, trying to find the right words. "I think you've built something stronger than I thought. But it's still old. How can it compete with the Council's fleets?" Captain Reyna smiled, but it wasn't a smile of arrogance. It was a smile of quiet confidence. "You'll see soon enough. We don't rely on fancy ships. We rely on each other. And that's something you can't measure with technology." Zarn nodded slowly. He didn't fully understand yet, but he was beginning to feel that Earth was more than he had expected. These humans were different. They weren't just surviving, they were fighting. And that made all the difference. The sun was beginning to set as Zarn stood on the edge of the military base, watching the warship from earlier get ready for action. The old ship was now surrounded by a group of humans who were preparing it for something big. Zarn could feel the tension in the air. He had thought the ship was a joke, old, slow, and poorly maintained. But now, as he watched the humans move with purpose, he began to wonder if he had underestimated them. Captain Reyna walked up to Zarn, her expression serious. "Are you ready to see what our warships can do?" Zarn hesitated, unsure of what to expect. "I'm ready, but I don't think your ship will be able to keep up with the Council's fleets. It's too outdated." Captain Reyna gave him a sharp look. "We don't need to keep up with your fleets. We need to protect our home, and we'll do whatever it takes to do that." Zarn didn't know what she meant, but he stayed silent. The humans were preparing for something, and he wanted to see it with his own eyes. As the crew finished their final checks, the ship's engines hummed to life. The noise was loud, but steady. The old ship was starting to move, slowly at first, as if shaking off the dust of years of disuse. Captain Reyna turned to Zarn. "Watch closely. This is where the real power lies." The warship began to rise from the ground, its engines firing up, lifting it off the desert floor. Zarn watched in awe as the ship ascended into the sky. Despite its old age, it moved with surprising grace. The engines, though not as advanced as those of the Galactic Council's ships, seemed to be working perfectly. Zarn had to admit, there was something impressive about the way the humans had kept the ship alive. The warship climbed higher and higher, breaking through the atmosphere with ease. Zarn could feel the pressure of the atmosphere change as they left the ground behind. He felt a sense of excitement begin to grow inside him. Maybe there was something to Earth's warships after all. As the ship entered space, Captain Reyna's voice came through the intercom. "All systems are go. Time for a demonstration." Zarn barely had time to prepare before the ship shot forward, accelerating faster than he had expected. The old ship didn't look like it could move this quickly, but somehow it did. The hum of the engines grew louder as the ship picked up speed, leaving behind the empty space of Earth's atmosphere. Captain Rena gave him a look that said, "Hold on." And then the ship made a sharp turn, speeding toward a distant target. Zarn's heart raced as the ship approached a small, floating target in space. It was just a simple piece of space debris, but to Zarn, it felt like this was the test. If the ship could hit it, maybe the humans weren't as weak as he thought. Captain Rena didn't hesitate. She pressed a button on the control panel, and suddenly, the ship's weapons came to life. A burst of bright light shot from the ship's side, hitting the target dead on. Zarn's eyes widened. The weapon's power wasn't like the clean, efficient lasers of the Council's ships. It was raw, brutal power. The target exploded in a flash of fire and debris. Zarn couldn't believe what he was seeing. The ship wasn't just powerful, it was precise. The humans hadn't just built a warship, they had built a weapon that could fight and win, no matter what. But Captain Rena wasn't done. She motioned for the crew to prepare for another test. This time, she aimed at a much larger target, a derelict space station floating in the distance. Zarn watched as the ship turned, its weapons charging up once more. The ship's engines roared as it accelerated toward the station. "This is it," Captain Rena said with a smile. "Let's see how well this ship handles real combat." As they neared the station, Captain Rena fired the ship's main guns. The shots were powerful, each one hitting the station with terrifying force. Zarn could feel the ship shudder with each blast, but it held steady. The station didn't stand a chance. With each shot, parts of the station exploded, sending debris flying in all directions. Zarn's mouth went dry. He had seen the Galactic Council's ships destroy stations and fleets, but nothing like this. The humans' warship didn't rely on fancy tech or advanced shields. It relied on raw power and the will to fight. The station was soon nothing more than a cloud of floating metal. Zarn stared, still processing what he had witnessed. "How?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How can this ship be so powerful with so little technology?" Captain Rena looked at him, her expression calm but confident. "We don't need the most advanced tech. We have the will to fight and the strength to survive. This ship, old as it is, has fought in battles, and it'll fight again." Zarn felt a deep sense of respect for the humans. This wasn't just about technology or firepower. It was about their unbreakable spirit. He had come to Earth thinking he would see a weak, outdated fleet, but what he had seen was something much more dangerous. A people who were ready to fight for their survival, no matter what. As the ship turned back toward Earth, Zarn realized that the humans weren't just surviving. They were thriving. And their warships, they were more powerful than he had ever imagined. The warship had returned to Earth after the demonstration, its engines slowly powering down. The hum of the engines faded, and Zarn stood on the ground, still stunned by what he had just witnessed. The ship, old and worn, had shown incredible power. It had destroyed a space station with ease, its weapons bursting through the silence of space with a brutal force that made Zarn question everything he thought he knew about Earth and its people. Captain Rena walked up to him, her face calm, though a small, knowing smile played at the corners of her lips. "So, what do you think?" she asked, her voice steady and confident. Zarn didn't know how to respond. His mind was racing. The ship he had thought was nothing more than a relic had just proven itself far more powerful than anything he had expected. He had come here to find weakness, to confirm that the humans were nothing more than a primitive species with outdated technology. But instead, he had found strength. Strength in the ship, in the people, and in the will to fight. I don't understand," Zarn admitted, his voice quiet. "How is this possible? Your technology is so much less advanced than the Council's. How can your ship do what it just did?" Captain Rena's smile widened slightly, but there was no pride in it. Instead, there was something deeper, something Zarn couldn't quite put his finger on. "You see, Zarn, we don't rely on fancy tech or weapons. We rely on our strength, our unity. This ship didn't become powerful because of its weapons or its technology. It became powerful because the people who built it refused to give up." Zarn looked at her, trying to understand. But you don't have the same resources. How do you keep going? Captain Rena shrugged. We make do. Earth hasn't always been easy, but we've learned how to fight with what we have, and we've learned how to survive. The strength isn't in the ship itself, it's in the people who fly it. Zarn took a deep breath, trying to absorb her words. He had never met anyone who thought like this before. He had seen planets that relied on technology, on the latest advancements, to ensure their survival. But the humans, they didn't need the latest technology. They had something else: determination, unity, and a fierce will to survive. I didn't expect this, Zarn finally said, his voice full of awe. I thought Earth would be weak. I thought your people were nothing more than survivors. But I see now, you're much more than that. Captain Rena nodded. We've learned to fight with what we have. And that makes us stronger than anything the Council can bring. Zarn felt a shift inside him, a change in the way he saw Earth. He had come here expecting to find a world that was easy to conquer, a species that would fall without a fight. But instead, he had found something unexpected. He had found a world that wouldn't go down without a fight. He had found people who would do whatever it took to protect their home. As Zarn stood there, lost in thought, a sudden noise broke his concentration. A small group of humans rushed past him, moving quickly toward the ship. Captain Rena turned to follow them, and Zarn instinctively fell into step behind her. What's happening? He asked, his curiosity piqued. We've just received a transmission, she explained. It's from the outer colonies. There's a fleet heading toward Earth. Zarn's eyes narrowed. A fleet? From who? Captain Rena's expression darkened. We don't know yet, but we're not taking any chances. We'll be ready. As they approached the ship, Zarn could see the crew already working, their movements efficient and focused. The warship, once thought of as a relic, was being prepared for another fight. Zarn couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for the humans. They didn't hesitate. They didn't waste time. They just fought. The ship's engines roared to life once more, the sound filling the air as it lifted off the ground. Zarn stood back, watching as the humans prepared for another battle. He had seen how powerful their ship was, but now he was about to see something even more important: their ability to fight as a united front. Zarn climbed into a small observation area on the ship, watching the preparations unfold. He could see the crew working together, communicating without words, their actions synchronized as if they had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. They weren't just flying the ship, they were part of something bigger. They were part of Earth's fight for survival. As the ship ascended into the sky once more, Zarn couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The humans were ready for war. They were ready to defend their home, no matter the cost. And Zarn knew that he was witnessing something extraordinary. In that moment, something shifted inside him. He had come to Earth as an outsider, expecting to find a weak, primitive species. But instead, he had found a people who were more than capable of standing up for themselves. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their future. And Zarn, he was beginning to understand that Earth's future wasn't as uncertain as he once thought. The humans would fight, and they would win. As the warship soared higher into the sky, Zarn sat in a quiet corner of the ship, still trying to understand everything he had seen so far. The humans were unlike anything he had expected. Their warship was powerful, yes, but there was more to them than just technology and weapons. There was something deeper, something that made them strong in ways that Zarn didn't quite understand. Captain Rena walked over to Zarn, her face calm but with a look of determination in her eyes. She had noticed how quiet he had been since the ship took off. You've been quiet, thinking about what you've seen. Zarn looked up at her, his mind racing. I don't know what to think. You've shown me that your ship is powerful, but that's not what surprises me. It's how you all work together, how you seem to never give up. Rena smiled slightly, as though she had expected this question. It's not just about power or technology. It's about our will to survive. We've had to fight for everything we have. We don't just give up because something seems difficult. Zarn frowned. But you're just humans. Your resources are limited. You don't have the strength or technology that the Council has. Captain Rena's eyes softened. That's true. But we make up for it in other ways. Our strength doesn't come from weapons. It comes from the people we are. It comes from how we work together, how we fight for each other, and how we never stop pushing forward. Zarn felt a strange sense of respect grow inside him. He had seen many species, many fleets, and many worlds. But he had never seen a species so willing to fight for each other, so determined to protect what they loved. He had seen strength in many forms, but the humans had a different kind of strength, a strength that wasn't just physical, but mental and emotional too. We don't give up, Rena continued, her voice steady. When Earth was nearly destroyed, we didn't give up. When we faced enemies far stronger than us, we didn't give up. And when things seem impossible, we keep going. It's who we are. Zarn was silent for a long time, thinking about her words. He had seen humans in battle. He had seen their warship destroy a space station and watched as the crew worked together seamlessly. But what he hadn't seen, until now, was the strength that lay beneath the surface. It wasn't just about what they could do. It was about why they did it. It was about their drive to protect, to survive, and to never back down. As the ship continued its journey, Zarn couldn't help but notice the crew. They weren't just soldiers or pilots. They were a family. Each person worked with the other, not out of duty, but because they cared. They shared the same goal, to protect their world and each other. And that, Zarn realized, was what made them powerful. It wasn't their ships or their weapons. It was their unity, their determination, their refusal to be defeated. Hours passed, and Zarn watched as the crew trained, laughed, and worked together. They were always moving forward, always improving. They didn't just rely on what they had. They looked for ways to make themselves better. Zarn saw one of the pilots practicing a maneuver with a simulator. Another crew member was repairing a part of the ship's engine, even though it wasn't broken, just to make sure it was in top condition. Everywhere he looked, he saw people striving to be better, to do more, to make Earth safer. Zarn had seen many civilizations in his travels, but none like this. The humans didn't have the most advanced technology. They didn't have the largest armies. But they had something that no other species had. They had heart. They had resilience. And most importantly, they had each other. Zarn realized that this was the true strength of humanity. It wasn't about being the strongest in terms of technology or firepower. It was about their will, their unity, and their willingness to fight for what mattered. The humans didn't just fight for themselves. They fought for each other, for their families, for their planet. They fought because they believed in something bigger than themselves. As the day went on, Zarn felt a growing sense of admiration for these people. They had shown him what true strength was. It wasn't just about physical power or advanced weapons. It was about the strength to face impossible odds and never give up. The strength to keep going when the world seemed against them. And that, Zarn realized, was what made them dangerous. By the time the ship descended back toward Earth, Zarn had learned more than he had ever expected. He had come to Earth thinking he would find a weak, primitive species. But instead, he had found a people who were far stronger than he could have ever imagined. He had come to Earth expecting to teach, but instead, he had learned. The warship landed back on Earth, and Zarn stepped off the craft with a new feeling in his chest. The feeling wasn't something he was used to. Respect. He had come to Earth with a mission. He had come to study a primitive, weak species. But now, after everything he had witnessed, he realized that he had underestimated the humans in every way possible. Zarn had seen their strength. He had seen their warship destroy a station with a single strike. He had watched as they worked together, not out of fear, but out of a deep, unspoken understanding. The humans had shown him their power, yes, But they had also shown him something more important, their spirit. It was a spirit that refused to be broken, no matter how hard the fight. Captain Rena was walking beside him, her footsteps steady, her expression calm. Zarn had grown used to her confidence, but today he saw it in a new light. She wasn't just a captain leading her crew. She was a symbol of everything that made humans strong. It wasn't about weapons or ships. It was about the people. "Captain," Zarn said, his voice quieter than before, "I've been thinking about what you said, about your strength, about your will to survive." Rena glanced at him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "And I thought you were just like every other species I've seen," Zarn said, his words slow. "I thought you relied on technology, on weapons, but now I see that your true strength lies in something else." Rena smiled, but it wasn't a smug smile. It was a smile that reflected the quiet pride of someone who had been through much and come out stronger for it. "We don't have the best tech, Zarn, but we have something that no other species can match. We have our will to survive. We have each other." Zarn nodded, his thoughts swirling. "I see that now. It's not just your ships or your weapons. It's how you fight, how you stand together, no matter what." "That's right," Rena said, her voice full of conviction. "When you stand together, you're stronger than anything that comes against you." Zarn's respect for the humans grew even more in that moment. He had seen what they were capable of. They weren't just survivors, they were fighters. And they fought for each other, not just for their planet. They fought for the ones they loved. That was something Zarn hadn't seen before in any other species. It was something rare, something powerful. "I still can't believe what I saw," Zarn admitted, looking up at the sky. "Your warship, the way it moved, the way it fought, it was as if it had a mind of its own." Rena chuckled softly. "It does. It's not just a ship, it's part of us. The people who build and fly it, they make it what it is. It's their strength that makes it powerful." Zarn looked at her, his eyes wide with curiosity. "How does that work? The ship isn't alive, is it?" "No," Rena said, shaking her head. "But it's a reflection of us. The crew, the people who fly it, they put everything into that ship. Their hopes, their dreams, their will to survive. That's what makes it powerful. It's not about the ship's engines or its weapons. It's about the people behind it." Zarn's mind raced as he thought about this. The humans didn't just build ships. They built a connection to them. They didn't just use their technology. They poured their hearts and souls into it. It wasn't about using something for a purpose. It was about making that purpose part of who they were. As they walked through the bustling base, Zarn watched the humans around him. He saw soldiers, engineers, doctors, and pilots all working together. They weren't just people in uniforms. They were a family. They worked together because they wanted to protect each other. They didn't do it out of duty or fear. They did it because they cared. And that, Zarn realized, was what made them different from any species he had ever encountered. "Your people are special," Zarn said quietly, more to himself than to Rena. "You're stronger than I thought. Stronger than any species I've seen." Rena smiled, a little sadly. "We've had to be. We've had to fight for everything we have. And we won't stop fighting. Not for our world. Not for each other." Zarn nodded, a deep respect forming in his chest. He had thought Earth would be an easy target. He had thought that the humans would fall before him. But now, after everything he had seen, he knew better. Earth was not weak. The humans were not weak. They were a force to be reckoned with. "I'm starting to understand," Zarn said, his voice steady. "You're not like any species I've ever encountered, and that makes you dangerous." Rena's smile grew wider, but there was no arrogance in it. Just the quiet pride of someone who knew exactly what they were capable of. "We are dangerous," she said simply, "but only because we have everything to protect." Zarn watched her, his heart full of newfound respect. The humans had shown him what real strength looked like. It wasn't just in their warships or their technology. It was in their hearts. It was in the way they stood together, no matter the odds. And now, Tsar knew that if anyone could protect their world, it was the humans.